hear the Keymaster? Welcome back to another episode of DEStalks. I am Chase, your COO and host. I'm joined here today with Rob, our CEO, and Mr. John Sample, our Managing Director of Education and Curriculum here at Dynamic Educational Solutions. Man, that was a mouthful. How you guys doing, man?
I'm proud of you for getting all that out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, man, in record time. That was under 20 seconds. I'm proud of myself. I'm working
It's
on
impressive.
my hosting abilities, I guess, yeah.
Well, if everybody was here last week, then you followed through on your promise to practice in the mirror with yourself, and I'm proud of you for that. Good follow.
I did, actually.
Man. Dedication to craft, I appreciate that.
That's right. Actually, I have everything up on a teleprompter. No,
Smart.
That'd be a really cool feature if we had that.
We did?
Shut up. That's awesome. All right, well, I'll talk to the producer after this, and maybe we can get that for the next one.
Good luck.
So we wanted to talk today. We had some pretty big news. Rob, you brought something to the attention to the group this morning, to the AKA Wolfpack, and we started having an awesome conversation around it before we jumped on. So we just wanted to take a pause in our conversation, and we wanted to hit record and do a DEStalks this morning and kind of have a conversation around what's happening today. Rob, go ahead. Kick us off, man.
Yeah, sure. So I'll start here. Before we dive into what I think is going to be our larger discussion, I'll start with an article that I found this morning titled "Higher Education and Higher Earnings." Here's where advanced degrees pay off the most. It's a good 10-minute read, so I won't dive into too much detail. But I did find it incredibly intriguing. There's some good statistics in here, and it talks about how individuals who have a 4-year degree have a higher earning potential. And that if you go to a private or Ivy League institution, is what they say in the article, you have a better chance of being a 1% earner in America.
And so 1% earner is defined as what? I think that's what, 250,000 plus a year?
Probably. I'm unsure on that. But that sounds good. We can roll with that.
We need a Jamie. Can we hire an intern?
You have the authority to do whatever you would like. But it's interesting. And so I'll go through here, and then I'm curious what y'all's thoughts are. But I think there's a graph on here that couches everything pretty well. And I'll link the article in the description below so you can check everything out. And we like to cite our sources here. But it says getting a higher degree can pay off. College graduates earn 70% more than those with a high school diploma. The earnings boost from advanced degrees is even higher. So if you have a graduate or a professional degree, your median earning as of 2023 is about $87,000. With a bachelor's degree, $67,000. Some college or an associate's degree, you're at $46,000. High school diploma, you're at $40,000. And then our non-high school grad, you're at $32,000. I find that interesting, and I'm not here to say this article isn't true. I think
just say it. Just say it. The math isn't mathing.
No, this article is very opinionated, and I don't think they've widened their scope enough to understand. I think there's a lot of information in here that is good. Essentially, what they're saying is you have a higher earning potential if you have a college degree. Well, we all know that. We know that.
But they're failing to factor in anything about how the average person to get that college degree is going to take out student loans.
Ooh,
and with the student loans come 30 years of interest payments and then 30 years of principal payments. 30 is a good round number for me. But they're not factoring any of that in, which takes your median salary right off the bat. Well,
yes.
Not for the first 6 months grace or whatever they give you, but right after that, they're slashing it.
Well, what a great segue. Let me read to you the last two paragraphs quickly of this article. And it says, although having a college degree can significantly boost one's wages, attending colleges comes with a heavy price tag. In 2023, one out of every 4 U.S. young adults had student loan debt, owing a median amount of $20,000 to $25,000. It also found that college graduates with student loan debt tend to have lower household incomes than those without debt. Go figure. You're paying back student loans. You have debt. You're starting in a hole. 4 out of 5 Americans now think that someone without a college degree could potentially get a well-paying job in today's economy, and roughly half feel having a degree is less helpful than it was 20 years ago. As college enrollment declines from a peak of 70% in 2009 to 61% in 2021, it seems that the perceived financial benefits of a college degree may not be as clear-cut as before. That is a very quick synopsis of a 10-minute read. I encourage you to go back and read this. If you're in college now, you're looking at going back and getting a degree, it's a good starting place to understand the financial ramifications of attending college again, what that could do to you. But I do think I'm very curious what all their sources are whenever it comes to this data. There's a very large portion of it where it talks about being at an Ivy League institution could potentially put you into the 1% over going to maybe a state institution.
There's a lot of assumptions being made by this data.
Well,
I would love to see the extrapolation of this data because the math isn't mathing for me.
Well,
if you're telling me right now, if I just went and looked on the Census Bureau, right, your average American household, that means two, most of us have 2 working adults in the household, is $80,000 a year. And you mean to tell me, and then I went and I said, well, how many, I went and looked real quick, how many people do we have with higher education? What's the average education, level? And it says that for people with undergraduates, it's only 38% of Americans.
Yeah, it's not a lot of us. And before you keep going, can I interject one thing here?
Please.
We talk about the fact who's making the decision to hire entry-level people at high 30s, low 40s, but you have to have a college degree. Who's making that decision? Why do you need a college degree to be a data entry person? Why do you need a college degree to work at McDonald's, Walmart, Target, Chick-fil-A? It's this continual perpetuation of an archaic train of thought that you have to have a collegiate degree. What does a college degree show? Can anyone give me that answer that's here on this show with us? What does a college degree ultimately show an employer?
Follow through.
Yeah, that's a good
I invested in myself. Watch this. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to pay for it or take my student loans out. And I'm going to invest my 4 years into this program. At the end of my 4 years, I've successfully completed it. That's my follow through. That's my investment in myself. So I understand some of that, but I don't think it's worth the money we're paying. I think that requiring these small entry level jobs drives that machine of having to constantly reinvest that money back into it to keep it alive. They have to require these positions or they die.
Okay, that's one train of thought. Chase, what do you have?
As an employer, I look at a college education as more of a mixed bag. I do see the value in the fact that you can follow through, right? But I can also see that, if you have worked a position or held a job for more than 5 years, right? That would, to me, be the equivalent. So I think more of what I'm looking for is they know how to effectively communicate, right? So you have to effectively know how to communicate as an adult working in a sphere for at least 4 years to be able to attain that. So I know that you can, have some simile of effective communication. You're trainable, right? So I know that you have been in an immersive, self-paced training environment for the last 4 years. So I know that you have that. I know that you're a self-starter if you're a graduate, because I do know, because I've been to college, I know that the professors don't handhold you like they do in primary all the way up to, in high school. So you're kind of left up to your own devices. You're given enough rope to either climb up or hang yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's what I'm seeing whenever I get a college graduate. But those are all values that I can find someplace else. So if you've worked at the same position for 5 years, I know that at least every day, if you did not advance in that career for 5 years, you were just getting job experience, or, at the bare minimum, what I know is that you will show up every day, you will do what is asked of you, right? And that I can expect the minimum from you. So it's, there's a lot of ways of going about that, looking at what you actually bring to the table. Now, if you're specialized, right? So let's just say that you come to the table and you have an undergraduate degree in, right, in some kind of specialty, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that's different. Now, what you're bringing to the table is knowledge, skill sets. You're bringing, hopefully, networking, like you talked about, some network. So if you don't know that answer, you hopefully went to a university and developed those relationships, knowing that you might need to reach back on those at some point, right? As you are gaining the knowledge from that well, those who are looking to go get education, right? Start looking at it that way. You're going to the well to get the information. Why wouldn't you bring the contact or a bucket with you of that information whenever you leave? So, the value of education, of a college education, is wide and varied, but what do I get immediately from it? I don't know anymore in 2025, unless you're specializing.
Yeah, and I think you're both right. I think you've both made really, really good points. And I mean, to make it very clear, you have 3 college graduates here with you and talking with you. So not to be hypocritical, but, to your point, Chase, you and I started our college journey together post-military. I know you and I can both point to what you said about the follow through, being where you need to be and going to class, to having that self-discipline. You and I can both very clearly state that's not the case all the time, because I can vividly recall a student who didn't come to class, didn't do the homework, did not turn in assignments, and still graduated a course or progressed through a course with a B because the instructor liked him. And Chase and I were in the room whenever we heard the conversation. So I'm going to push back on that just a little bit. But in my mind, a college degree shows you have the ability to obtain and retain knowledge, right? And you have the ability to critically think. But to both of y'all's point, can the same thing not be learned with OJT? Can we not put people, and we're seeing this trend. If you go on Indeed or any of the other job boards,
what a nice segue away from that.
And you look at job descriptions, a lot of people are changing their tune. It's either you need an undergraduate degree in small business administration, or you need 3+ years working in a similar career field to take its place. I love that trend. Because to your point, Chase, and in the article that I was reading, only 38% of Americans have a collegiate degree. So we got to do something for the other 62%, right?
Right.
I don't know how many people can say that they had a successful career just based off of OJT. I can say I did, because whenever I started at SMU, I didn't have a collegiate degree. I progressed through and I learned, right? I don't know. I think there's a case to be made, but I think you're also seeing a trend in how you can progress through college. And we had a similar conversation with one of our educational partners yesterday, where we were talking about micro-credentialing. We were talking about, and for those of you who don't understand micro-credentialing, I'll just give a very, very quick example so it's easy to understand. Essentially, you're taking a degree program, truncating it down into micro certificate programs that ultimately culminate in a degree if you take them in a linear fashion. So it reduces the financial burden on you, or spreads it out over a longer time period for our working professionals, where you can go back and get the degree that you need. I encourage you all to check that out. I'm sorry, Chase, go ahead, man.
Well, that's nice, because when you get into the micro-credentialing, you're talking about like competency-based qualifications. So now you're going to focus really in depth on this one aspect for just a little while, and we're going to get right into it. So I think it gives a little more of a in-depth knowledge than some of the classes where I'm spread out over a really long period of time.
I agree with you. It's more bang for your buck.
I like to hit it hard and fast. It's just, I learn better that way. I retain it better.
Yep.
Instead of spreading the knowledge base out over 16 weeks, right? A lot of these micro-credentialing courses are set up, as I have seen, to be 6 to 8 weeks long. They wind up having a culminating in a project, so there's many different ways to to have hands-on experience whenever you're doing the micro-credentialing as well, because of the way they're set up.
What a great point, because a lot of time for some of us, I'll tell you, I mean, I have my undergrad in psychology. Only needed, if I'm remembering correctly, 30 core hours of psychology curriculum. I needed 90 additional hours for like college algebra, statistical analysis, all this stuff doesn't fall under the reason why I'm going to college. Well, the degree that I wanted, it's 90 hours of add-on coursework and 30 hours of specialized curriculum to culminate in a degree, whereas micro-credentialing is almost the inverse of that. It's focusing on what you need to attain the degree.
And I think that the traditional way of looking at it, so our parents' generation, I would even say our generation, guys, of people that went straight to college, okay? That's not us. All three of us went enlisted. But, I find it hard because I did not have a traditional quote-unquote college experience, right? So if you're a parent out there and your kids are looking at going to college, John, raise your hand. And your kids are about ready to go to college, right? What's more important? And I would love to, John, to hear your weight on this. Are you, as a parent, more concerned with their college experience? Are you more concerned with them actually going to college to get the tools that they need to be successful after graduation? Well, I think that weigh heavy on? Does that weigh at all in your conversations?
So it does, because I think both. We're setting them up the best we can for success right now, trying to teach them how to manage their time, manage their schedule, manage their life. But when they get to college, it's going to be a whole different thing, because we're not going to be sitting there. Did you do your homework? Did you do this? So they're going to have to learn to do that themselves. And I think that's part of college. It gives that little bit of a buffer zone to fall, as long as they pick themselves back up and get back on track. But I think it allows them that little, you said a bit ago, enough to hang themselves, enough rope to hang themselves that they can screw up a little bit, but it's a safer place to do it.
Hmm.
So but no, of course, I want them to grow, and I want them to be studious, and I want them to push through. Yeah.
So you guys are kind of viewing that as like a proving ground, right? So it's like a transition from like mom and dad's house, into what we consider to be the real world. Yeah. It'd be like a soft landing. Okay.
I love that. That's so good. So
we send you away from home. You're still going to have a place to live. You're going to have a schedule. You're going to have food. All that's going to be taken care of. But now you got to do it on your own. But under a safety net.
Yeah. That's the traditional student pathway, right? And that's what I think we're seeing being challenged now, and something that's close to our heart here at DES. One of our driving missions is to reduce and remove financial barriers to higher education. And I think you do that by focusing on non-traditional student pathways, like the micro-credentialing. It's been around for a while. We just view it as a 2-year institution and then making the jump over to a 4-year. It's very, very similar. It's just the micro-credentialing can be introduced at a 4-year institution right away and reduce that financial impact. But I think what you two are talking about is a really good conversation surrounding traditional norms. Well, because you do send your kids off as a proving ground, as a safe space to make those mistakes where you can bounce back and you're in a bubble. It's like whenever we were in the military, right? We're in a bubble,
Thank
man.
You.
So we can fail, but you have a system to pick you back up. It's the same way for traditional student pathways going through college. You can fail, but there's a bubble there to help stand you back up. There's rules in place so that way you don't fail too fast and you don't fail too hard. Whereas I think with these non-traditional student pathways, the onus is back on the individual going through them to be disciplined enough to not fail. Because if you fail, there's no safety net there for you.
Right. So, it goes back to, you talked about us being in the military. You said that so we don't fail. I disagree. I think it was set up so that we did fail fast, but we did not fall hard. Right. So if we failed, we failed quickly and then we retrained. I mean, good gosh, how many times you guys have to retrain your soldiers, on what you would consider to be one of the simplest tasks?
Never. Right? I was an outstanding NCO.
That's
all right. Never trained anybody? How was that?
Not bad. My bad. I forgot
Start
that you were
I was
you know,
S2. You watch your mouth.
you're up there flying up there with Icarus up there close to the flagpole. You know, where the sun always shines. John and I were down there in the shadows having to work with the guys that
In
need
the
to be retrained a
shadows.
lot.
Get out. No, I'm totally joking. I'm totally joking, and I would never disparage anyone. Ben, if you're listening, you know what I'm talking
Nice.
about. I'm here for it.
Man, I still, I need to reach out to that guy. We need to have him on the show too.
We should.
Speaking of people, by the way, that was a shared, John. I don't know if we've ever told you this story that Rob and I shared a soldier.
We did.
From South Korea to Fort Drum.
Well, that's awesome.
Then here the best part is he had no idea. He went from one Sergeant Hurst to another one. It was sensational.
And I think he almost cried. Like
it was awesome.
Out of just straight desperation. He was like, I finally got away from one and I got sucked up by another. But he got two different ones. He got the younger Hurst the first time, who was like, hard charging. And then he got the more seasoned Sergeant Hurst on the other side.
The calm down.
Like, calm down, like laid back version, who's more of like,
Yeah, well, he got the early 20s Hurst. And then he got the late 20s Hurst.
Yeah.
Which is a 20s, huge early difference.
30s. Yeah.
So my brother and I have a similar experience. So I was a recruiter up here in Omaha. And I had a guy I was working with. And I just, no matter what happens, he never joined. There was always some issue. So finally, I just gave him all the stuff back. And I'm like, look, get your stuff straight. Come back, see me. Great, grand, wonderful. But I'm kind of tired of following you around and trying to keep track of you. I got other stuff to do. I'm a busy man. He finally goes into a different
10%
station.
that took up 90% of your time.
Exactly. And he goes to a different station about a year later. So I'd completely forgotten about the guy. And then randomly I get a call from my brother, who's a drill sergeant in Oklahoma at Fort Sill at the time. And he goes, do you know a so-and-so? Oh, yeah. Like, it turns out he got down there and he sees the sergeant. My brother was at school at the time, combative school. And they're like, oh, Drill Sergeant Sample will be joining us soon. And the guy's like, well, I do a Sergeant Sample. POS, wouldn't put me in the Army. Like, left out a little bit of the story. And so the drill sergeants down there know me at the time. They know me. They know my brother. Yeah. So when Maya gets back on the trail, they're like, this guy's got a story to tell you. So he talks about his recruiter experience. So my brother goes, we're going to fact check this. Calls me.
No.
I smoked him for an hour over the phone.
Over the phone!
Yeah, they got the real story, and then I locked him up.
Hey, if you are that soldier and you're hearing this,
do better.
Write us. Do better. We hope that you have learned and grown from that experience. In fact, we'd love to have you on the show.
Yeah. Come on.
Well, to bring it back around, just to kind of wrap it up, put a pretty bow on our talk today. We'll keep this one a little short, but we did cover what? We talked about a lot of things. We talked about moving over to micro-credentialing as we're seeing the future of education, in my humble opinion, is going to go more towards a micro-credentialing aspect. I think a more traditional route to education has to evolve, with the fact that our main industries here in the United States are moving away from factory, or actually probably moving back to factories now that we're seeing what's going on in the news. Maybe I'm wrong in this.
I don't know. I'm a big fan of micro. I talked about it last week. Talk about it again real quick for everyone. For a long time, there's been even myself, I didn't think that a trade would be a viable career path, but the skilled trade, HVAC, welding, electrical, plumbing, all that, those are trending career fields with an average starting salary in the mid-60s. Just saying, could be a viable career path for you.
You mean two things I'm never going to get rid of? That I can go and get trained. I can go and get trained in a truncated, education space, and come out making $60,000 a year.
And what's the average for an undergrad? 40. Well, according to the article that we just spent 20 minutes on, it's $45,000. And you come out of school on average with $20,000 to $25,000 worth of debt.
Guys, we're in higher education. We need to stop talking about this. This is going to be detrimental to our business.
No, it's
Great
not.
for our business. People just need to understand, or not understand, but like how many people knew micro-credentialing existed before if they watch this? Making sure people get all of the options that are there for them. I mean, you're talking trades. Like, I'm never going to get rid of my air conditioner, electricity, plumbing. I'm always going to need those people. I could do some of the basics, but I'm going to have to hire somebody to do the big stuff. And knowing that some of these program degrees exist should change how people look at their approach to education. Not everybody's there for that 4-year degree. That doesn't fit everybody's schedule, especially when you look at veterans, adult learners, non-traditional students. We need that flexibility. You know, when I started going to school, I was in the Army. I was in the Army Reserves. I was working full time. I had 2 kids under 2. I was married and going to school. I had so much stuff going on that something had to give. So it ended up being the Army. So I got out of the Army. A different path would have been the best choice for me, but I didn't know all the paths existed. And, you know, maybe all of them were mainstay at the time. But now I think that making sure you know what you want to do and going through the different options and offering these options is more important than saying sit in this classroom for the next 4 years. Like, if I want to see how much pain somebody can take, I'll go get them a tattoo. That'll tell me how patient they are sitting through something terrible. Like, we're going to tattoo the top of your foot. You can sit through that? Come on, I got you.
That's our new hiring practices here at Dynamic Educational Solutions from our managing director. We're gonna get a tattoo together, see how you react.
Just see how much pain you can take. Hey, you know, John
That's all we're looking for.
Yeah, dude, you brought up a really good point, because if you think about it, we're not just talking about us, the 3 of us, who were in the military, got out, and my story is exactly like yours. Going to college, working a full-time job, 2 kids under the age of, I think they were both under the age of 2, very similar, married. Like, I have all these responsibilities. It was a challenge sitting in class, and then you had to take the crappy classes because I'm working a full-time job. I still have to pick up kids from daycare, get them home, make sure mom's home, get dinner ready, and then I'm in class from 8 to 11 p.m., only to turn around, drive home, wake up at 6 o'clock, and do it all again the next day.
And you know,
I'm not the only one, dude.
The best professors, all of them, I can promise you, do night courses specifically between 8 and 11 p.m.
Well, but yeah, if you look at the demographic, y'all remember sitting in class with, not to speak ill, but 18, 19-year-olds who all they've done is go to school.
Mm-hmm.
Combat Purple Heart veteran on the top right of my screen, and John goes back to school. Chase, multiple deployment, Marine Corps Army veteran, goes back to school. Guarantee in your mid to late 20s. So you have this full breadth of life experience. Going back to sit in a classroom of 18 and 19-year-olds and trying to find commonality, that's not going to happen.
Well,
Think about like the single moms out there. How do they do it?
I was about to say, I'm not going to be able to write a paper in the same voice that an 18 or 19-year-old are going to be able to write. Right? My life experience is not going to allow. My life experience is going to shape the voice in which I write in. And this is something that I had a problem with whenever I was up at university in North Texas. I'm not going to name anybody out loud, but I was writing papers, getting my degree, and I actually took real world experience and I tried to use that in my voice, right? Because I thought that's what I went to college for, right? You know, and then I kept on running into issues with 2 that I remember, 2 professors that I had to write to their style. They wanted their voice to be echoed in my writing. And I wound up walking out with C's in both those classes because I refused to do it, right? Like, and they weren't even classes that I needed, in my opinion, to have my vocation. It was, they were electives, if you will. You know, they were what they used to call exploratory classes. You know, they can't call that anymore. Now they just call it your degree path. But I agree. I think that, the traditional way of doing things of, requiring, 90 hours of extracurricular, studies is going by the way of the dinosaur. It's not obtainable by most of us. I mean, 7 years of practicing something makes you an expert, right? What do they say? In order to master something, you need to spend 1,000 hours with it.
Sounds good. I mean, I'm not trying to hammer the micro-credentialing too much. But with that, you're looking at transfer credits going into college.
Yeah.
That's the goal. And not just transfer credits from prior educational experience. For my military cats out there, if you're listening, and for us here on this call, I mean, you have your JST. So all your military training, you can take that into an institution. They can take transfer credit hours, then you can hit the micro credentialing. Man, you can get a collegiate degree in a non-traditional pathway in a year, 2 years. That's what our focus is, especially here at DES. Is, you know, we're starting to get a lot more traction with all these 4-year institutions, both state and Ivy League institutions. And what I can genuinely tell you, all of our conversations are around micro-credentialing and transfer credit value add. Not just for prior educational experience, but also work experience and life experience. How do those things translate? It's interesting. We're seeing a real shift into real world viable credentialing, certifications, and micro credentialing. If you are not on that, and I'm sure a lot of people are,
I'm sure,
but outside of just Google and LinkedIn certifications, it's so powerful, these credentialing programs that are out there now. I'm not going to harp on it too much, because I know we have one other thing that we wanted to talk about today, right?
We sure did. We're going to talk about the power of trades, right?
Yeah, we can talk about that. I'm trying to think of how to couch this, because I don't want this to be an hour-long conversation, but it certainly could be. I mean, we work with the trade school here in Dallas. And I mean, you're talking an 8-week program that you can complete for $12,000. You graduate as a certified electrician, plumber. Do they do welding?
HVAC, welding.
HVAC and welding. You can graduate in 8 weeks, $12,000.
Facilities maintenance, I think they do as well.
Well, here's the best part. A lot of these trade schools, not just the one that we work with, but a lot of them, they do job placement immediately following. They get community partners. So now you almost have a guaranteed job. If you don't have 12 grand, they have fellowship programs and work study programs.
Getting a heavy equipment operator license, that's a micro credentialing. That's a credit. Going to get your forklift operator, accreditation. These are turning into, micro credentialing that could lead up to a warehouse management degree, right?
Yeah.
Or, things like this that, as long as you go into it with the plan, and we here at DES always advocate, to having a long-term strategic plan to your education, right? So stacking your micro-credentialing or knowing where you want to be and then navigating that road going forth. I mean, you can do as many micro-credentialing as you want, but if the school that you want to transfer to or the place that you want to do doesn't accept those hours, I mean, that's not going to do you much good, right? So going forth with the plan for that, making sure that, even if you're in the trades, right? So if you go to, a trade school, to caveat off of that, if you're going to the trade school and you get your level 1 certificate, right? Let's make sure that if you want to get a level 2, that level 2 education provider accepts your level 1 from the previous trainer.
Yeah, I mean, that's just having a good educational training program or training path and just understanding what the end game is for you. Because as we both know that as we all know, we've just spent 30 minutes talking about it. A 4-year degree doesn't guarantee you a job. And I think that's where a lot of people misunderstand.
No, but it guarantees you an opportunity, right?
It guarantees you a piece of paper. Because right now, if you go to school, and Chase, I think, and I'm not picking on you.
Don't.
But I think you're a good example. What is your degree in? Your
university studies.
University studies. What job can you point to and say, okay, my university studies degree allows me to get this job?
I can start a company working in higher education.
You absolutely can. You absolutely can. What a great answer. Yeah, you can.
Human resources mostly, that's kind of where that skill set lies. I mean, you get dumped into the general pool, if you will.
So let me ask you a question.
What jobs have I been able to find? That's a better question.
That was my next question.
Yeah. So, that's a great conversation because I graduated my degree. I was a freight broker for a while, worked as an insurance person. I've worked as SRO for a middle school for a while. I was a paraprofessional inside of a school. I mean, I've done ranching a little bit. I mean, I've kind of done a little bit of it all
You have the
since
same.
graduating.
You have a very similar story to a gentleman we had on the show a few weeks ago, Rob Moore.
Yeah.
He talked about the exact same thing. It took him years and years to finally end up at a place where he felt like his educational journey ultimately culminated into a career, a viable career, not a job. And I think right now you're seeing people graduate from college and they're not finding a career, they're finding a job. That's because if you look at the job boards, they want you to have an undergraduate degree, but they also want you to be certified in 10 other things.
Yeah.
So if you're going and you're getting your undergrad right now, it may behoove you if you take summers off.
Major.
Yeah, there you go again. I'm going to quit using the word behoove. It would benefit you if you're taking the summers off from coursework, maybe go back and look at certifications, maybe project management. If you can leave and your undergrad as a certified project manager, financial planning, whatever you're looking into. Because Rob talked about it on his episode. He had his undergraduate degree. He was an officer in the Army. That did him no favors whenever he got out. He had to go through 2 coding boot camps to finally land the job that he has now. And what a great story, because I think that's a shared experience.
I think that's kind of across the board. My wife has 3 degrees. So she got a degree in business and then decided she wanted to do education. So she went back to school and got another bachelor's in elementary education. And the timing didn't work out great because right when she graduated, well, we had my daughter. And then she went to get another classroom the next year, and I deployed again. So she didn't get a classroom then and stayed a sub. And then I got back from deployment, and she went to get a classroom, and they said, "You've been out of school too long." Well, it's elementary education. How much has changed? I can catch up on the year of history you're not going to add to those books anyway, right? But she had to go back to school and get her master's to get a job because she'd been out of school for almost 2 years. Now, for family reason, it drug her out, but they still make her, that's going to happen. And it's just, I think, a useless waste of time sometimes. I think that I know she gains stuff from it. We're not going to discount that, but.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Knowing your wife, she is brilliant and probably did most of those degrees with her eyes closed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. While carrying me on her back.
That's what I'm saying. Tina's amazing. But if you look at it, she went and did everything on paper that was right and was still unable, to reach her goal at the end, which was, in my opinion, which is, now she's overeducated. Now she's too expensive.
Yeah, she wasn't invited into the system that she bought so much into.
Yep.
So that's been a huge thing of mine on the college.
And then as soon as you get in, it's like they want you with your undergrad. And then as soon as you get in, they start pushing that more education on your expense. Yeah.
Man, it's just it's like being on a hamster wheel, isn't it? I said it 35 minutes ago. Who is moving the needle on us? Because we get everyone turning on the hamster wheel, and then we make another requirement. Oh, you went to college, got your 4-year degree, but you don't qualify for any of these other than entry-level positions without having these 10 certifications to get a job that pays you over $50,000, right? But then to progress even further, to John's point, you need an advanced degree. So now you got to get back on the hamster wheel and go back to school. It's this never-ending thing. And it drives me nuts because I've asked the question. I asked it yesterday whenever I talked to a prospective client. Who's making these decisions? Who's making the decisions to say, in order to be the COO of Dynamic Educational Solutions, you have to have an MBA. You have to have your MBA. But I also want you to have 10 years of experience.
Right. It's smart. Like, I understand that. I mean, even the guy who's sitting here as a COO of Dynamic Educational Solutions, I'm looking at MBAs because it does give me a wealth of knowledge. Right. But, people have been running businesses way before a MBA was invented, and they ran it pretty successfully. There's a lot of people out there that are pretty self-motivated and can learn stuff as they go. Eventually might work for me. I don't know.
People that came up with an MBA are running a business in education. So that's why I keep calling it a pyramid scheme, a Ponzi scheme. This is like an old high school friend reaching out to me. Like, what do you want from me?
Well, dude, I mean, it's what we're seeing now across the United States. We're seeing a challenge to the norms that we've put in place for the past 50, 60 plus years. It's a challenge. Everything is being challenged right now. And I'm excited because I think that we are a part of that challenging force. We're coming in, we're trying to make a positive change based off of our life experience. And I'm a big proponent of, if I went through it, somebody else is going through it. I'll just stand up and advocate for you. I have no problem with that. But I will say, let me couch our conversation really quickly. You have to be a lifelong learner to be successful. And that's just a fact, right? Reading the cool books about fairies and elves and stuff is awesome, and it's a good way to escape. But that's not going to move the needle for you professionally. Yeah. The needle is already moving. The end zone is getting further and further away from you. And we can talk about that across the landscape. But specifically for higher education and getting a long-term viable career path, if you are not consistently reskilling and upskilling yourself, you're going to be left behind, man.
Oh, I love it. Man, what a great way. I'm just going to cap it right here. Okay. You heard it here. All right. If you are not constantly skilling and upskilling, all right, it's much like a bookmark that. Let's go back.
My bad. I was going to let you work through that. Okay. You got it.
I'm going to couch that right there because I do believe that's, God damn it. I lost it. I fucking lost it. All right. Here we go. We're going to close this out right here. Ready? Well, I'm going to cap that right here. That's all the time we have today. I mean, we've got the conversation started is what we wanted to do. Coming back around, we know that the requirements are changing is what we talked about today. We kind of see that upcoming. You need to have a plan for your education. Make sure that you're looking for alternate routes to education. And if you have something to benefit our audience, meaning that you have some kind of insight or you're a provider of training and you'd like to be a part of our show, make sure that you contact us at info@dynamiceducationsolutions.com. We are here for it. We want to hear your voice being out there so that our audience can have the best leg up. With that being said, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Stay minimally professional, my friends. There you go.